Hi, I'm Whitney Slightham, and I work as a marketer here in Lynchburg, Virginia. And the agency that I'm currently working at is 434. We do market research, inbound marketing, web development, and outbound sales. And so I work in marketing in all of those activities, but one that I do a lot of is market research, and in particular something called buyer persona research. Before I moved down here, I actually grew up in Toronto, which is where I did undergrad and grad school in public relations and marketing, and then I built a consulting business. And I worked mostly with technical engineering companies, but I've been doing research for many, many years. And so today we are going to be talking about how to understand your buyers, and it's really, really important to understand what your buyers want, whether you are launching a business for the first time in a new place or if you've been around here for a while, because people are constantly changing their influences, the way they feel about things. They're constantly marketed to in different ways, and the ways that we communicate with our customers are constantly changing. So it's important to do continuous market research with them. So today we are going to cover two things. First, we're going to look at how you get buyer persona data and what that will look like. And secondly, what you're going to do with all of that data and how it actually helps to inform your business and marketing strategies moving forward. So you can get buyer persona insights in three ways. First is one-on-one interviews. Secondly, you can do surveys. And thirdly, Google consumer surveys. I'm going to talk a little bit about each of those now. So first, one-on-one interviews. You're going to want to schedule 15 to 30-minute interviews, and these are going to be over the phone. And you're going to want to talk to, ideally, your current customers. Now, if you are totally a startup, don't have any customers just yet, just really trying to get that first push, you're going to want to talk to maybe prospects. That would be helpful. But another thing that you can do that is really interesting is to talk to people who have chosen an alternative. So they are kind of familiar with your product or service that you're offering, but have also, looked at your competitors and have chosen a competitor instead. And so that's very interesting, especially if you have no customers just yet. Important things to remember. So these interviews are going to be over the phone, so you're going to have to consider a way to record the interview, and also make sure to ask permission to record the interview before you get started. That's important. So what are we looking for? Our goal in these interviews is to uncover basically the whys, the who, the what, the why, the when, and the how. And a good way to frame these questions is through something called the 5 rings of buying insights. And so these are as follows. So the first one is the priority initiative. What is your customer's goal? Why are they looking for your product, service, or solution in the first place? Secondly, success factors. How do your customers define success? What does your product or service bring to their organization if they're in B2B, or bring to their life in B2C that is really going to help them? And what kind of metrics for success do they have? Thirdly, decision criteria. So what are the key attributes or features or benefits that your customers are consistently looking for? And it's important to make sure that your sample, I will mention, is big enough. So you're going to want to talk to 6 to 10 customers is pretty good. And so maybe one customer will talk mostly about, benefit number 1 or feature number 1, but your 6 other customers are going to be focused on something totally different. You'll begin to see trends in the data over time with the more interviews that you do. And especially in terms of prioritizing what decision criteria and success factors and benefits you should focus on, you want to go with the majority of what people are saying and just looking at those trends. Fourthly, we're going to look at something called perceived barriers. So what challenges did your customers have to overcome, either in the buying process? Is there anything negative about their experience? Were there any influencers in their decision-making process that negatively impacted their buying journey? Those are really interesting to uncover. And lastly, the buyer's journey. And so the buyer's journey is broken up into three things: whether they are making a low consideration, very quick decision, kind of a quick gut reaction sale for your product, or if it's a longer, more drawn out decision-making process. Every buyer is going to go through these three stages. So first is the awareness stage, next, consideration stage, and third, decision stage. So in the awareness stage, they're really just becoming aware of their need. They need something, and they are going to evaluate different options to try to find the best course of action from there. So for example, let's say that my car breaks down. Hopefully that doesn't happen. So car breaks down, I have a new need for transportation in the area. So I have a few options, and I'm still in the awareness stage. I'm becoming aware of my scope of options. I could get a bicycle, but that won't really help me when I'm trying to go far away. I could use public transportation, but again, that's just localized. Or I could try to find a new car, renting or buying it. So, all right, I'm moving into the consideration stage. This is where I'm going to start looking at different options. What dealerships are in the area? What are my friends and my family recommending? What options fit my price range? Then I'm going to move into the decision stage. Typically, with long consideration decisions like buying a car, that buyer's journey is going to span a longer period of time, and it's going to involve more detailed research. So by the time I get to the decision stage, I've already picked a dealership, and I've already considered a lot of the different features and benefits that I'd be looking for before making that decision to buy a car. It's really important to note that the average B2B customer is already 60% through the buyer's journey. So it's somewhere between consideration and decision before they even start engaging with the sales rep. So what are you going to do with all of this data now that you have it? You are going to want to organize your data. And so a good way to do this is, you have the interview, you recorded the interview. The next step is to transcribe it and then read through those interviews again and maybe use different colors of highlighters, or if it's on your computer, just highlight the text in different ways. Try to organize them into the 5 rings of buying insights: priority initiative, success factor, decision criteria, perceived barriers, and buyer's journey, the story of how they came to be your customer. So once you have those 5 sections kind of mapped out with a bunch of quotes all organized, you're gonna, again, reread through those quotes and organize them in terms of different themes. For example, if a bunch of customers are talking about pricing and you have that organized under decision criteria, you're gonna wanna take a closer look at some of the themes that they're talking about in terms of pricing. Maybe they're looking for lower fees, or maybe there's different insights that you can tease out there, but at least it's all well organized so that at a later date when you're building your marketing strategy or really just trying to do any kind of market positioning for your lean canvas, for example, it's just a good starting place. You can always refer to this document at a later date. Next, we have surveys. So that's the second way that you can get information from your customers. This, I would honestly recommend using an online survey software. I've done research projects where we've had to do manual data entry, meaning paper surveys, and logging in tons of data points for like 800 people. So it's a good day. So I would definitely recommend using something like SurveyMonkey, because it will generate all of your reports automatically. You'll have nice, beautiful charts that depict what your customers are talking about. So when you're setting up this survey, you're gonna wanna have a mix of demographic data and psychographic data. Demographic data, you're looking for things like how old are they a boy or a girl, or what's their gender, Where are they located? And especially in B2B, you want to have a good idea of what their job is and what their job description is. Next, we're going to look at psychographic data. So what kind of beliefs do they have? What do they value most? Do they have any particular interests or hobbies? You might be able to find some trends there. I would also recommend asking one question that is very, very important. This is the Net Promoter Score. And so the Net Promoter Score, or NPS, is a way to really analyze your predictive revenue. So it's just one question, it's a 10-point scale, and you're going to ask them, how likely are you to recommend my organization to a colleague or a friend? And so there's this whole, you can Google it and take a look at Net Promoter Score, but it's definitely an important metric for any organization to keep an eye on, because the likelihood to recommend is a great metric that you can use to define the probability of predictive revenue down the road and future growth. You're also going to want to remember to ask their communication preferences. Do they use social media? If so, which platforms do they use? Do they prefer email or a phone call or mail? How do they like to be interacted with? And what would be the most efficient and effective way to interact with them? And then also leave a section on your online survey where they can put in any recommendations or challenges that they faced, any suggestions that you can do as an organization. And just another quick note, there's something called the Likert scale, and this would be another thing to take a look at when you're building your survey. And so the Likert scale is a great way to phrase your online survey questions. So it's a 5-point scale. Usually you rank them from strongly agree to strongly disagree. And you can do a little bit more research on that, but it's just a very way to alleviate bias and to make sure that you're writing survey questions in a way that are really garnering true insights. Lastly, we have Google Consumer Surveys. So Google Consumer Surveys have some pros and some cons. The pros are that they allow you to cast a wider net, meaning if you're trying to get general industry insights about the organization that you're building, maybe you would want to lean to Google Consumer Surveys. It's also a good alternative if you don't have a big customer population to draw from. It might be a good place to start. This can be location-based, so typically Google Consumer Surveys are by state, but you can also expand that to a bigger network as well. And you can ask up to 2 screener questions. So that doesn't leave a ton of room when you're trying to get a specific niche industry, or for example, talk to somebody in a specific role at a specific organization. That is kind of unlikely with a Google Consumer Survey. So in my opinion and experience, Google Consumer Surveys are really well suited for B2C research. The cons of Google Consumer Surveys is that they're kind of expensive, and like I said, they're not suitable for very niche and specific markets, simply because the sample size is too small for Google. So what do you do with all of this data? You have your interview data when you build your buyer personas, you have your survey data, and then you have more survey data from Google Consumers. What do you do with all of that? Well, you can use your data to really make data-driven marketing decisions that will help your business. So you can refine your messaging. For example, we have a lot of clients that will take their customer quote and whatever research that we got out of that phone interview, and then use that right in their website and messaging, right in their direct email campaigns, because you're using the same phrases and lexicon that your buyers are comfortable with. So it's kind of a no-brainer to speak to them the same way and to just tell them exactly what they want to hear. Next, it will help you examine your market position, because you can hear about your customers, how they feel about your competitors, for example, about alternatives to your product. It will also help you understand any perceived barriers that they had, any challenges that they were faced with in that buying process. And lastly, once you understand the buyer's journey, so you know how I said that buyers are typically 60% through the buyer's journey before they even start engaging with your organization. In this case, you can try to find ways by using that buyer data to engage with them early on in the buying process, in the awareness and the consideration stage. Thank you so much for listening today. If you have any more questions, I can be reached at Slightham, which is my last name, at 434marketing.com. And I'd be happy to talk to you about your buyer persona research or any questions that you may have. Also, the link to the site is down below. Thank you so much, and I hope you have an awesome day.